so I'm the only guy. Let's bow our heads for a moment. May the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart, be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my salvation. And so, Spirit of God, speak to us, either through me or in spite of me. But let us hear the whispers of your heart. Amen. During our morning services, we are busy with the 23rd Psalm. And we have been busy talking about it and exploring the depths of that wonderful psalm now for 2 months. And so we decided, well, the end of this month, it must be the end. Otherwise, we can preach the whole year about the psalm. There's so much in this psalm. And I want to share just a little bit about that with you. The topic that I want to talk to you about is, and you have that in your programs, showers of blessings in the valleys of death. I want to start with a childhood story. The text that we want to look at is Psalm 23, verse 4. Even though I walk through the valley of death, the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. So let me tell you a childhood story. When I was a kid, as far as I can remember, since very, very young, we went to church every week, twice on a Sunday. The church we belonged to was a Reformed church, the first Reformed church of that town, in Petersburg, in South Africa. And so it was a big church, inner city church or inner town church. Many people, we didn't know many of the people, so we went to church, went out, and go home. And then we moved to another house in a different neighborhood, and we started to go to a very small startup church. Now, this church was really small. There were 15 members in the church. When my parents joined, they were 17. But if you would walk past that church on any given Sunday morning or Sunday evening, you would not believe that there's only 17, maybe 20 people, if we were lucky, in the church, because they lift the roof with their singing. I've never heard such a small group of people sing with so much passion. And as a young child, I learned all these old, beautiful hymns, and I learned to love those old hymns. I grew up with those old hymns, the hymns that just resounded in the walls of this old little church right around the corner. One of the hymns that we used to sing was that old hymn, and unfortunately we don't have it in the Methodist hymnal, but it's an old Baptist hymn that says, "There shall be showers of blessings. There is the promise of love. There shall be seasons refreshing sent from the Savior above." And then when we got to that part, the chorus part, I mean, you just could feel the showers of blessings falling. Showers of blessings we need. Mercy drops round us are falling, but for the showers we plead. Wonderful song. You may ask, well, what has that got to do with Psalm 23, verse 4 of all verses? You see, verse 4 says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." We'll get to the blessings shortly. Let's look at the Psalm 23, just the background of the psalm. There's so much about this psalm. I told the congregation in the morning that I've preached about this psalm so many times, and every time I read it, and I have to preach about it. It's new, and there's so much coming from this psalm because this is a little miracle. What we need to know about this psalm is the following. We must know that it's part of a fantastic book, the book of Psalms. The book of Psalms, if you read the book, there's actually 5 books included. It's divided into 5 books. And then the other thing that you need to know when you read the Psalms is to forget the numbers and to read from the one to the other without the numbers. And then you see the clusters that form in this book. It changed the meaning, it changed the reading of the Psalms. So when you look at Psalm 23, it's actually part of a bigger cluster, starting at Psalm 22, going to Psalm 23, going to Psalm 24, and even you can read Psalm 25 together in this cluster of Psalms. Psalm 22 takes you to hell. Psalm 22 is this cry of the psalmist that say, my God, why have thou forsaken me? Psalm 23 takes us out of hell to the present. And in the present, it says, I have a shepherd. I have someone who cares. I'm not alone. I'm not down there where it's lonely, where there's nothing, where there's darkness. From Psalm 23, you go on to Psalm 24, and from the present, you go to the heavens. The heavens, which open up with these beautiful words, the earth is the Lord. If you take Psalm 23, verse 6, it says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever, my whole life long. The earth is the Lord's and all that is in it. And it just takes you beyond. It is the part where you get out of this rut of this world, and God just takes you out of that, and you see the King enthroned on his throne in heaven. There's someone in charge. What you also need to know about this beautiful psalm is that there is constant movement in the psalm. It's a dynamic psalm. The first part, the psalmist tells us about the shepherd. He has this testimony, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. It's the most beautiful testimony. And then it goes on into the second part, and the psalmist talks to God. The mood changes. And he goes on and he says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you. From he, it goes on to you. It's a prayer. And then in the last part, the psalmist goes on and he looks at his audience, to everybody who wished to hear. And he says, well, with this shepherd on my side, I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. What an assurance. Look at the change. He, you, I. But what I want us to concentrate for a few moments on is the movement of the shepherd. That's most interesting. The first part of the psalm tells us about the shepherd who makes us to lie down in green pastures. He leads us beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Interesting, where is the shepherd? The shepherd is in front, leading. The sheep, they're just following. The shepherd is leading, the sheep are following. Wherever he leads, they go. He leads them to places where they can feed. He leads them to still waters. He leads them to rest. He restores their soul. The shepherd leading. And then the second part. From the shepherd in front, the position of the shepherd changes. The psalmist here is a real good poet because he's making use of the same technique, can we use that, as Jesus did. Contrast. You see the picture that we have in the first part, his lush green streams of water, all restoration of the soul. It's heaven. It's the Garden of Eden. It's beautiful. And then suddenly, the contrast, suddenly there's danger. Suddenly, there's the shadow of death. There's this path from green pastures. We see that we go into this dark place where there's shadows, where there's death, and he uses those words that are heavy. And we get this reality slap. Is that part of our journey? We thought we follow this shepherd and we thought we are safe. What now? The valley, the shadow, death. We don't really like valleys. And if you know this place, that there is a place like that in Israel, the valley of the shadow of death. It's a gruesome place. It's an unfriendly place. It's a place where you don't want to be. So the path of righteousness that we get in the previous verse, the path of righteousness actually means he leads me on this journey that's right. But this journey passes a valley. It passes an abyss. It passes very dark places. Death. So what is he doing? He contrasted the worst to the best. Death to life, hell to heaven. What a contrast. Brothers and sisters, if you've ever attended a memorial service or a funeral, you must have heard this verse. If you've ever walked through a cemetery, you've read these words. You see, this is part of our journey. Our journey is not only to lush green, but sometimes for the lush green to come, we have to pass the valley of the shadow of death. Sometimes we also have to pass death. If you look back on 2018, maybe you recognize the shadows. Maybe you recognize the times that you had to pass through places where there was no light, where it was dark, where you also echoed Psalm 22 and you asked for where is God? You see, this verse is also echoing the previous psalm where the psalmist cried out, "Where are you, God?" He says, well, it's part of the journey. The shadows, the valleys, the death. And yet, in this part, the testimony becomes a prayer. And it's as if the psalmist wants to tell us, Don't face death without facing God. Don't speak about death without speaking to God. You see, the interesting part of this is where the shepherd is. The first one, he was in front. The second one here, where we talk about the valley of the shadow of death, the position changes and he is with them. The meaning, it comes from the front. The shepherd moves in to be next to them. An implication is that he is between the sheep and the abyss. Wow. What a miracle. What a wonder. The shepherd is not only in front, and we have to be on this ravine, and we have to face this narrow road where you can fall down in the abyss any moment. No, he comes beside us. If we talk about death, the same kind of idea we find in John 14, verse 2 to 3. My Father's house has many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I'm going there to prepare a place for you? If I go and prepare a place for you, I'll come back and take you to be with me. He goes to the other side, the uttermost of the other side. Even if I had to face death, he says, he's with me. You see, he does not delegate this task. You see, God sent missionaries and teachers to teach us, angels to protect us, teachers to guide us, singers to inspire us, physicians to heal us, but no one to take you. He's the one. He reserves this job for himself. I'll come and take you home. Even if I had to face death. From the front, to be by my side. And then from there, he goes to my back. Hear this fantastic psalm. I mean, it's just incredible. He says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, remember, I walk through it. I will get to the other side. He doesn't let me get stuck in that. But listen what happens here. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the good times, we know that God is in front of us. In the bad times, he's next to us. And when we get to the end of our lives and we look back, we realize that he was behind us as well. So what is this to do with showers of blessing? You see, the showers of blessing is not showers of material fortune, luck, happiness. To be showered with blessings is to know that there's someone in front of me that I can follow. Someone that prepares the path that is unknown to you and to me, and I can follow with confidence. There's someone behind me to cover my past with grace and mercy, and at times to push me. But most of all, there's someone next to me, beside me, between me and the abyss. So brothers and sisters, he's also the one that will stay with me forever. Are you following him? My question this afternoon it's all good and well. My question, are you in the fold? Or are you still outside? Do you know the time in your life when you became part of this fold? Because if not, you're in danger. And I want to urge you, as Jesus is calling you by your name, come and follow me. Amen.